Welcome. Today we're going to uncover how a really simple question about a common accident can totally change how we see and solve some of society's biggest problems. And believe it or not, it all starts with a can of tuna.
All right, let's picture this. You're in the kitchen, maybe making a sandwich. You go to open a can of tuna, and ouch, you slice your finger on that super sharp lid. It happens, right?
So, what's your first thought? It's probably something like, I'm so clumsy, I should have been more careful. But what if you paused and asked a different question? What if the problem isn't you, but the can? Why was this thing designed in such an unsafe way to begin with?
That little shift in perspective, that is so powerful. Moving the focus from my fault to a design flaw, that's the very core of what social welfare research is all about.
See, in this field, we call that a social risk. It's that moment we realize a problem isn't just one person's bad luck. It's a collective issue, something society as a whole needs to think about and fix. And recognizing that is always the first step toward finding a real, lasting solution.
Okay, to really see this in action, let's jump back in time to 19th century London. This exact same shift in thinking happened there, and it changed, well, pretty much everything. For hundreds of years, the conventional wisdom was, honestly, pretty harsh. The thinking was, people are poor because there's something wrong with them. They're lazy, they're irresponsible, maybe they're even being punished by God. It was seen as a purely individual moral problem.
This was just the default setting, what everyone assumed to be true. But as cities started to explode in size and all these new social problems popped up, a few people started to ask a really critical question. Wait a minute, is that really true? And one of those people was a guy named Charles Booth. Now, Booth was a wealthy ship owner, not some kind of radical activist. He was actually pretty skeptical of the wild claims being thrown around about how bad poverty was. So he decided to do something nobody had really done before. He launched a massive, incredibly detailed investigation to find out the facts. And what he found was just staggering. His research showed that nearly a third, 30.7% of London's entire population was living in poverty. This number was way higher than even the most progressive reformers had been claiming. But here's the real bombshell. Booth's data did more than just count the poor. It completely flipped the old assumption about why they were poor. He proved with hard evidence that the problem wasn't some personal moral failing. It was an economic one. People weren't poor because they were lazy. They were poor because they couldn't find steady jobs that paid them enough to actually live on. And this wasn't just some weird thing happening in London. Another researcher, Seabohm Rowntree, did a similar study in a smaller city, York, and get this, he found almost the exact same poverty rate. He confirmed the problem was structural, not personal. And on top of that, he pioneered the idea of the poverty line to measure it, a tool we literally still use all over the world today. So, with all this crystal clear data, everyone must have gotten on the same page about the problem and how to fix it, right? Well, not quite. This is where it gets really interesting. The British government launched its own investigation. They looked at the exact same evidence from Booth and Rowntree, and they produced two completely different reports. The majority report basically stuck to the old script, blaming individuals. But the minority report, they argued that the entire social system was flawed and that the government had to step in and fix it. And this shows us a fundamental truth about research. It's never just about the cold, hard numbers. It's about the worldview, the beliefs you bring to those numbers. Your starting point, your core assumptions, they shape the questions you ask and, in the end, the answers you're willing to accept. Okay, so how does all this history apply to what we do today? Well, it's basically the blueprint for modern social welfare, and it shows us how we drive change in the real world. You see, research isn't just a one-time thing. It's both the beginning and the end of any effective action. It all starts with research to figure out what a community actually needs. Then you use that evidence to design and implement a program or a policy. But you can't stop there. The cycle closes when you go back and do more research to evaluate what you did. Did it work? Did we actually make a difference? This whole process is the engine that makes sure we're not just guessing or acting on good intentions, but making smart, evidence-based decisions that really help people. So after all this, what's the single most powerful tool we have in social research? It's not some fancy statistical software. It's not a huge budget. It's something much simpler.
is the ability to ask a good, critical question. You see, not all questions are created equal. Asking about the effects of a hangover, well, that's kind of trivial. We all know the answer. But asking why people's lives haven't gotten better even after their country becomes a democracy, now that is a profound question. That's a question that can lead to real change. It's all about digging past the surface to find what one thinker called the cause of the cause. Let's say someone is struggling with alcoholism. You could stop there. Or you could ask why. Why did they start drinking so heavily? Maybe it's because they lost their job when a factory closed down. That deeper why gets you to the real structural problem. So, from a cut on a tuna can all the way to national policy, real, meaningful change always starts with the courage to question the things we just accept as true. So, the next time you run into a problem, big or small, don't just settle for the easy answer. Ask why. And then ask why again. You might just be amazed where that question takes you.